Welcome to this webinar. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mel Johnson, and today I am joined by Mila from Cryos Sperm Bank. So thank you so much for giving some time to come and talk about this topic. Just a little bit about me. I am the founder of The Stalk and I. That is a support group for people thinking about becoming a solo mum. And one of the big topics for people who are considering becoming solo mums or a single mum by choice is how to choose or where to get sperm from. And that is why we've asked you to join us today to help us with that process. So I don't know if you just want to start by giving a quick introduction to yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for the invitation. I think it's really nice to be here tonight. I'm Mila. I'm clinic account manager for the UK and some other countries. I'm not sure how many people are joining from outside the UK tonight. We are the largest sperm bank with a very big selection of donors compliant with the UK requirements. We have the largest number of registered pregnancies in the world, and we have been around for 30 years. So we have a lot of experience and have delivered donor sperm to more than 100 countries. So it's a very exciting place to be in. We love helping women like all of you fulfill your dreams. So I'm excited to be here tonight. Yes.
Thank you. So just to say to everyone who has joined, please feel free to ask questions. So you can use the screen to ask your questions, and then as we're going through, I'll make sure that we answer any specific questions people have asked. So I think if we start off, Mila, could you sort of give an overview of if somebody is at the beginning of their journey, they need to get donor sperm as part of either an IUI or an IVF process, a fertility treatment. If they want to look at using Cryos, how does it work? What do they do? What's the process?
Yeah, well, we have a large selection of donors. So the first thing to do would be to create an account on our website and start browsing through the hundreds of profiles. It could be an overwhelming process for some, but I'm here to answer any questions about that tonight. It's a very different experience for everyone. Some people need to know as much about the donor as they can. Other people are okay with knowing some of the basic facts like hair color and height and education and so on. And we have, different profiles to fit all of those needs, so to speak. But the most important thing is to browse and make a wish list of what's important for you and start deciding how to go about making a short list.
All your donors provide the same information. Have you got the same level of information for everyone, or is there different levels of information?
No. Okay, so every country has its own legislation with regards to donor sperm. That's the number one thing to know. So if you are in the UK, you would only look at non-anonymous donors that are UK compliant. We have standards. So one of the filters on top of our page is called a standard. And you would choose the UK as the standard for which those donors would be compliant with. Mm-hmm. And we have, within the non-anonymous, we have basic profiles with basic information, like what I just mentioned, the hair and the color of the eyes, the height, educational level. And then we have extended profiles, and that gives, they have pictures of the donors as babies. We have family history of the family out of the donor, interests, education, a written note from the donor to potential parents to be. We have a maturity, what's it called, emotional IQ results, staff impressions. We have an audio file, so you can hear the voice of the donor. So that's one level. And then we have, if you want to pay a little bit extra, there's a feature for pictures of the donors as adults.
Okay.
And that's behind a paywall. And that's also a possibility. And then we have another category, and it's not for everyone, but for some people it's important that they can choose a donor that only they will be using. So it's called an exclusive donor.
Okay.
And you would buy the rights to using that donor, so it would be just you, and perhaps the donor has a family of its own one day. But that's, and then for other countries, it's only anonymous donors. And the same, we have the basic and the extended profiles. The difference between the anonymous and the non-anonymous is that the anonymous donors, the child will never be able to learn the identity of the donor. For the non-anonymous donors, when the child turns 18, they can request from Cryos information. And we would be providing the name of the donor and the item.
To the legislation in the country.
So it's important before you start browsing to maybe contact us and ask, what their requirements are. Usually the clinics can also offer a bit of advice on that. You're always welcome to call us. We can tell you right away if you're going to be getting treatment in Denmark or in the UK or in Greece or in what you need to be choosing. Yeah.
And it's the legislation of the country that you're getting treatment in.
Exactly.
The legislation of the country you're from.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Now,
Yes.
someone asked a question here that said they were told by their fertility doctor in the UK that the clinics in the UK won't deal with any sperm that has had photos attached. Do you know if that's true?
Well, we've actually gotten clarification. The clinics cannot provide the photos to the patients, but as an overseas bank, we can have those, but it's not, the clinics shouldn't be facilitating this.
Okay, so if they've got it from an overseas bank, the clinics should be able to still use that. It's just
should be able to, yeah.
Okay. I guess the important thing is that you check with your clinic, because if they say they can't, then...
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so we have some people who are considering using IUI and some people who are going to go straight to IVF. Is there something different they need to consider when they're choosing a sperm donor, depending which route you're going down?
It really depends on what the clinic recommends, yeah. For most treatments, an IUI ready motility 10 is probably enough, but some clinics may request motility 20. They may request even a higher motility of an ICI, which means that it's not washed, because they do their own preparation of the straws. So it really it is important to follow the clinic recommendation, and also ask how many straws they would like. Some people prefer to buy 3 straws at a time, ship them. Other people prefer to do one at a time and make a reservation with us, and we keep to make sure that they have enough of the donor that they have chosen. The benefit of that is that we can, if they end up not using those straws, we can reimburse a part of the price of that. So
lots of people ask me this question. So if say you're going to have IUI, how many straws do you need to buy if you're having IUI treatment? How many would you recommend?
Usually per cycle, 1 straw is enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then if you want to make sure that you have that sperm donor, that's when people maybe get more, so that
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for IUI or IVF, you would just need the one.
Yeah, usually 1 straw is enough for any particular treatment. Yes.
Okay. And then can you talk to us a little bit about the donors themselves? So what's the profile of the donor? Who's donating? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, our donors are usually between the ages of 18 and 45. For the UK, 42 is the limit. We limit that to 42. They are about 50% have higher education or are in the process of obtaining it. About 50% are also blood donors, which says a lot about their willingness to give back, and their motivation, really. That is, there's some degree of altruism there. They have about half of them have part-time jobs at least, or are self-employed, and about more than 50% are in a relationship. And we accept about 5 to 10% of all the donor applicants that come into Cryos. So we're very selective in terms of who gets accepted into the program. Yeah.
And what sort of thing would mean that you wouldn't be accepted? What sort of things do you decline people on?
Any history of genetic conditions.
Medical things.
Yeah, medical things, issues in the family. Yeah.
And do they go through any counselling or?
They do. They follow a maturity evaluation, and they get. We have medical staff that does counseling of what it means to become a donor, and what the motivation behind it, what it means for also in the future for them.
They understand from that session.
Exactly.
Contacted in the future.
Yes. Especially some of them are young at 18, so they need to understand what they're getting into. Yeah.
And do they understand? Because I know now anonymous can be tricky because of DNA testing, and you can find people, in different ways. Do they understand that, or?
Well, Cryos has an obligation to both the donors and the families that have chosen anonymous donors. So we know that nowadays it's becoming harder to keep that anonymity, but we do all that we can to protect the anonymity of our donors and to respect the wishes of the families that have chosen anonymous donors. But we understand that, especially with the genetic tests and all that, the anonymity is being it's harder to maintain nowadays, but from our side we do our best to keep it that way.
Okay. And do they get paid, the donors?
They get reimbursed for their effort and for their time, but it's legislated how much they can get, and it's under the limits that are established, and every country also again has their own limits, so we abide by that. Yeah.
Okay. And do the let me just say, do they is there any sort of validation? So is it just like on an honesty system that people are who they say they are? So if they say this is my profession or this is my medical history, is there any checks on that, or is it just accepted that's
well we have to accept what information they give us, but in terms of the donor being who he says he is, we have ways of telling that the person that comes into the door is the person that we have as a donor. We have a fingerprinting method and all of that, but in terms of the history that they give us, we have to trust that. Okay. It's very hard to do checks on that. Yeah, it's
okay. And so you talked a little bit about genetic testing. What genetic tests do you do?
The genetic testing has evolved throughout the years, and currently we have a panel of 46 recessive genetic disorders we test for. These are the most common recessive conditions that we consider could involve serious medical conditions. All of those you can see under the donor profile for all of our donors. That's another of one of the features I forgot to mention. But you can see it for every donor, what they have been tested for. Okay. So there might be a little bit variation depending on when they were donating, but nowadays it's 46 genetic conditions, and then all of the infectious panel as well. Okay.
And do you do anything on mental health? So is there anything on checking that their mental health, or is that?
Well, we part of the medical examination is, yeah, they touch on that. Yes.
Okay, I'm just looking at the questions. So we've answered some of them. So someone's asked, can you tell us a bit more about motility? What should we be looking at? What is the amount most people go for?
Yes, we have a wide range. We have motility 5, and then 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 plus.
Okay.
As I said before, the clinic will be able to tell you the minimum they will accept. You can always go higher if you want to, but for most treatments, motility 10 or 20 is what most people choose. Some people it depends how much you want to spend as well, because obviously if the higher you go, the more it costs. But just so if anyone there doesn't know what motility is the amount of active sperm cells per milliliter. So motility 5 means there's 5 million active sperm cells per milliliter. Motility 10 is 10 million, 20, and so on. And as I said before, the clinic might have requirements on this. And you might go higher than what the clinic says. You're always welcome to. I mean, it's up to you. But I mean, people have gotten pregnant with all the time with motility 5. It's not a bad motility, but it depends on what the clinics do to prepare the straws. A motility 5 that it's IUI ready, that gets washed again, will lose motility. So it depends what the clinic does, and that's why they might suggest even unwashed higher motility sometimes.
Okay, so it's more about the procedure that they're going to use it for rather than the quality.
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the key with quite a lot of these things is to check with the clinic you're using what their requirements are, so that you can make sure that you order the right.
Yes.
And then in terms of ordering it, how does it work? How do you order, pay? How do you get it? How long does it take?
Well, so I'll say the general process, and then I'll focus on the UK a little bit more specifically. Okay. We need to receive an order before 12 o'clock Danish time to be able to ship the same day. For the UK, however, we need more time than that. So I'll explain that later. So you go online, you add the straws that you want to an order. You select a shipping method. We have 4 different shipping methods: dry ice, and the shipping method determines how long the sperm will be kept frozen in that shipping method. So we have dry ice, which keeps it frozen for 3 days. We have a large dry ice, which keeps it for 5 days. We have a nitrogen tank that keeps it for 7 days, and the large tank that keeps it for 12 days. So it depends. If we're shipping within Denmark, small dry ice is probably enough, unless we're shipping on a Friday and then we don't deliver on the weekend, so you want to extend that to a large dry ice. To the UK, for the UK, we need to receive the order with a little bit more time. Because once we receive an order, we need to compile some of the paperwork for that donor. We need to send it to your clinic. Your clinic has to review all of those documents and approve that shipment before we can send it. And depending on the time of the day, we might be able to send that day or that day after. But it's important to give us at least 2 or 3 days to do that. And then it takes once we give the okay to ship, it takes 1 to 2 days to deliver to most places in the UK. So again, if you have questions about that, call us, and we'll be able to offer some advice on what shipping method. And the other thing is, in the UK, most clinics accept only orders with tanks, nitrogen tanks. So that's another.
So you need to check again with your clinic first.
Yeah, or with us. Yeah.
Okay, and can you order it way in advance? Can you, like, that's the minimum?
Yeah,
then
that's a minimum, yeah. So up to 4 weeks, you can place an order in advance. If it's more than 4 weeks, you need to place a reservation. And then when the time comes to ship, you can log in and request the shipment.
Right, okay. And I guess you have to pay for shipping. So is one of the reasons why people might order more than one?
Yeah.
They don't have to pay for multiple shipments.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's, you have to evaluate a little bit how many cycles you think you might be doing, and because the other, not everyone gets pregnant on the first try. Some people do, and then they can use the other straws for siblings later, but sometimes it's a good idea to see how it goes, and reserve some of the straws with us, so they are for either for siblings or for future treatment for other cycles. Because
sorry, go on.
Because if it happens that someone gets pregnant right away, those will be here on storage. And if by any chance those straws, they don't need to be used anymore, we will reimburse with 75% of the price of the straw if it hasn't left our lab.
Yeah.
Once it leaves the lab, we cannot stand for the quality anymore. We cannot. So once it leaves, we cannot reimburse for those straws.
And do you know what options people have? Is it up to the clinic? If you've bought more and it's with the clinic, do you know if they have any options if they get pregnant and they don't need it?
That's up to the clinic. I don't know.
Okay.
But usually, again, every country has its own legislation. In the UK, we have a limit of 10 families that can use the same donor. And this is when you place an order, you will be required to buy a quota, a family quota. Yeah. So once you have that quota, it's very hard for those straws to be given to someone else, because probably the quota has been reached. Right. So it depends. It's more complicated than it sounds. Yeah.
So if you order more straws, the clinic will store them for you, but then depending on the outcome, you would need to speak to the clinic on what would happen.
Yeah. So you might save on the shipping, but you wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Understood. Okay. Okay, so someone's asked if we have any good advice on finding a clinic, but I have a different webinar that's focused on finding a clinic, so I think that's probably not the...
Well, in terms of us, they're welcome to contact us and ask which clinics we are working with, and we can recommend some clinics that we have good collaboration with, and we're always happy to do that. So
Okay,
they're
perfect.
welcome to contact us. Yes.
Great. And then I had a question on my Instagram account earlier to say, do you have any advice on when you're choosing a donor, you know, should you choose the same ethnicity so people look more similar? Should you choose the same features and characteristics? Do you have any view on, you know, what you should look for when you're choosing?
That's an extremely personal question, and everyone might have a different answer. Some people choose a donor, some women choose a donor that looks like themselves. Mm-hmm. So there will be some sort of look-alike factor. Mm-hmm. In the case of solo moms, that would be the situation. When it's a couple, some people choose someone that looks like the other partner, and sometimes that's not even a factor for some people. Sometimes they sort of fall in love with the donor, and it's just the whole package that they're looking at. Yeah. So when we have a lot of phenotypes, but of course sometimes it's hard to find the one that matches exactly. We have also the possibility of the women can choose also donors from our US site. Mm-hmm. There's a bit more variation in terms of phenotypes and ethnicities there. Mm-hmm. It's a bit more expensive because you would have to pay for the importation into Europe, but that's a possibility, and we have a lot of we try to keep our donors as diverse as possible. But yeah, sometimes we are in Denmark, and the majority are blonde with blue eyes. Of course, we always are interested in bringing in more donors with different ethnicities, but that's also a possibility to order from our Cryos USA site.
Okay, so if you look on the one based in Denmark and you can't find what you want, then you may have more choice if you look on the USA one, but you will have to pay more for shipment because
yes.
Yes. Okay, good advice. Then.
Yeah, and in terms of you asked me also before about the success rates of the donors, if we could under the profile, and I meant to say that earlier, you can also see if the donor has had a successful pregnancy. Okay. We cannot tell you how many, but we can tell you if there has been a successful pregnancy or not. Okay. So, and that for some people, that really is a game changer. They will only look at donors who have had successful pregnancies, and it's kind of tricky because sometimes the donor is new, and there hasn't been enough time to report a successful pregnancy. So, you know, take that into account when.
Does it say how long they've been on the site?
Our donors that are new have a star next to them. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So you almost need to discount them a little bit from whether they've had a successful pregnancy yet.
Exactly. Yes.
What does new mean? So how long would they have a star for? What?
Oh, I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'm not sure how long they're new for. If someone is interested in that, they can email me and I'll find out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then one of the other questions we've got here is why do you believe that why should people use Cryos? So, you know, why should people here are deciding where to go? You know, what do you think is the reason that they should use Cryos?
Well, I think we have the largest selection, so you can choose from a wider range of donors. Mm-hmm. And I think once you've been on the website and see all the features that you can, all the information you have access to, and our extended profiles are very well, they describe the donor in a way that you almost feel like you know who it is and what their personality is. And I think that's most of the times that's what does it. It's all the information about the donor and the wide selection that we have that makes the people choose us. We hear this from patients in the UK all the time, that maybe the clinic offered one of their donors, but they want to be able to have that choice. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, is there anything else that I haven't asked you that I should have? Any other information that you wanted to share?
Let me think. I think we covered most of the
I think it gives everyone a really good insight, and I think so basically signposting them, go to the website, create your account, and then they will be able to see all of the options anyway. Do you have to pay to create? At what point is payment when you're ordering?
Yeah, we have, that's another feature that people love about Cryos. It's free access to all of this information. You don't have to pay for any of that, and you even get the pictures of the donors as babies for free, and you have access to all of them. So it's only creating an account, and it's because of the GDPR law, the privacy laws that have come into effect, that we need to protect the donors. So you need to create an account to be able to go into our website. But we're very transparent and open, and yeah, and that's one thing that the other banks maybe don't offer.
And it's just given me another thought. Is there, I think you mentioned it, but is there a limit to the number of times a donor can be used?
Well, as I said, for example, in the UK, there's a 10 family limit. So only 10 families can use the same donor.
Okay.
In Denmark is 12 families, and each country has its own limitation. So we follow the country quotas very strictly. We sell that quota, and when that's reached, it's reached.
You hear all sorts of stories. It's mainly from the US about these ones where it's hundreds. Not from Cryos, I don't know where they're from. Have the US got the same law, or is that something that's from the past? Or
I think maybe in the past it was more of an issue before these quotas were established and all this, but it's rare that a donor reaches more than 25 or 2.
Okay. So
yeah, something chilled.
From a sperm bank, then it would be following the legislation.
Well, I think there's been a lot of focus on that, and we've taken all the steps to be able to comply with the country quotas that limit the number of families that can have a child with the same donor. And I think we've worked really hard to make sure that there's a system in place that controls for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And someone's just asked a question around, do you keep in touch with any of the stories? So is there anyone who's now reached 18 that you know about that has contacted their donor? Do you keep in touch with that?
We haven't reached that time yet with our non-anonymous donors. Yeah, but we're looking forward to that day. So far, we have only the success stories from the mothers that send us their pictures and their stories, and we share some of that on social media, but it's only a fraction of what we get, and it's really the best part of my job to hear all these success stories and women who have created a family, and it's amazing. It makes it all worth it.
And I think just to explain to people who might not understand, you haven't reached that yet because the legislation only changed for non-anonymous donors in, what was it, 2000? No.
Yeah, it was before I started in Cryos, and
Yeah, the legislation.
I would say, yeah. 2000. I wouldn't want to give the wrong
Yeah.
year, but
Yeah.
but it's not going to be for a few years yet.
Yeah, so it wasn't 18 years ago, basically.
Yeah.
So when it reaches, so then we'll only have those stories from people who gave, knowing they could be contacted.
Yeah, it was only anonymous before. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everyone who joined for your questions. I will share this on my website. So if anybody does have any other questions, then you're welcome to ask them on the website when you see the recording, and we will try to get you any more information. And I will leave all the contact details of how to contact yourself and Cryos, and what the best way to get in touch is.
Yes, and please call us or send an email, and we can if you have any specific questions about your own situation, we can take it from there. If you need suggestions about clinics or about your specific treatment, again, your clinic might be able to offer more than we can, but any help about choosing the donor, if you have extra questions, feel free to contact us.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank
Yes.
you. Bye.
Bye.